Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome back to Sip&Talk.
Hey, Sip&Talkers. So glad you're with us.
We are too, and we've got a really interesting one today, sparked by a comment from one of you. It was pretty direct.
Oh, I saw that one. Let me guess. The warmongers one.
That's the one. It said, you guys are warmongers trying to change the post-WWII status quo.
Huh. It does sound like we're secretly building an aircraft carrier in the backyard, doesn't it? I mean, it's sip and talk, not sip and bomb.
Right. But, jokes aside, the logic behind that accusation is actually really serious.
Oh, absolutely. In international relations, that phrase, changing the status quo, is a very, very heavy term.
It really is. It implies you're the one causing instability, maybe even conflict. But here's the thing that the comment maybe misses.
What's that?
The idea that the status quo is this static thing. It's not. It's a dynamic balance, and it's always being pushed and pulled by things like technology and economics.
Exactly. So today we're going to dissect that. We're going to ask who, or maybe what, are the real status quo changers.
We'll look at the political accusations for sure, but then we'll contrast them with these deeper, non-military forces that are reshaping our world.
Things like AI, Japan's military evolution, and some of the enduring myths about that post-WWII order.
So let's unpack this. Are the real changers the politicians making moves on the chessboard, or are they the invisible forces that are, changing the board itself?
Okay, so let's start with where the accusation's coming from, the visible stuff.
Right, the actions that are easy to point to.
When critics use that label, changing the status quo, they're usually looking at military and economic moves by the U.S. and its allies.
Yeah, they're tangible. You can see them. They're simple to frame as, aggressive.
They involve treaties, budgets, deployments. It's the most direct use of state power to alter a regional balance. So let's talk military shifts first.
The main accusation is that by strengthening alliances, you're inherently challenging the existing balance. And we see this playing out really clearly in the Indo-Pacific.
Oh, yeah. Look no further than EUAUS, the security pact between Australia, the UK, and the US.
And the centerpiece of that is giving Australia nuclear-powered submarines. I mean, that is not a small ship.
Not even close. It's a massive, multi-generational commitment. The U.S. is transferring some of its most sensitive military tech.
Which sends a huge signal about how Washington sees regional defense now.
Absolutely. For critics, a new fleet of highly capable nuclear-powered subs in the Pacific. It just changes the entire calculus.
They're stealthy, they have incredible range. It totally boosts Australia's power projection.
And from the critics' perspective, that's not maintaining stability. That's an explicit move to neutralize or, contain another rising power.
And then you've got the Quad.
Right, the quadrilateral security dialogue. U.S., Japan, Australia, India.
Like lighter, right? Focused on disaster relief.
That framing is long gone. It is now, without a doubt, a strategic group.
Focused on what?
Maritime security, critical tech, supply chains. If you read their joint statements, they are taking unified positions on freedom of navigation, cybersecurity.
All things that directly poke at the strategic interests of, certain major powers in that region.
Exactly. And this is what's fascinating. The critics see these alliances as a deliberate effort to contain a specific country's influence.
So if your starting point is that you should have uncontested influence in your backyard,
then any new alliance, no matter how defensive its members claim it is going to look like a challenge.
It's like a vicious cycle. One side sees defensive modernization.
And the other side brands it as aggressive militarism. This is why the whole debate is framed as free and open Indo-Pacific versus containment.
It's like putting up a fence. Are you protecting your yard from the weather, or are you building a wall to keep your neighbor out?
The act is the same. The interpretation is everything. But, as big as ships and alliances are, the economic shifts might be even more disruptive to that post-WWII order.
The one based on free trade, globalization. The idea that efficiency was king.
Right, and that consensus is being systematically taken apart.
And the best example has to be the restrictions on technology exports, specifically semiconductors.
The CHPS and Science Act. It's a perfect case study.
We should really get into the details here, because this is where the economic status quo is being fundamentally changed.
The CHPS Act itself is just massive government intervention. Billions of dollars to bring semiconductor manufacturing back home.
But the export controls, that's the real strategic weapon here.
It is. They aren't just saying, we'll make our own chips. They're saying, we will actively stop you from making the best chips.
And they're targeting very specific critical technologies, right?
Extremely specific. And the specialized tools you need to make them. That's where the international part comes in. The U.S. had to get its allies on board.
Like the Netherlands.
Exactly. The Dutch company ASML has a near monopoly on the EUV machines, the incredibly complex tools you absolutely need for the most advanced chips.
So by getting the Dutch and the Japanese to agree to restrict exports.
The U.S. is basically severing key supply chains purely on national security grounds. It completely overrides decades of free market thinking.
You're replacing the mantra of efficiency, sourcing globally for the lowest cost.
With the strategy of resilience and security, even if it means things cost more at home.
And critics are saying this shift from globalization to de-risking is the biggest change to the economic status quo since the Soviet Union fell.
Well, it is. It's replacing a universal, open economic model with a system that's split in two based on political trust.
And the implication is huge if you restrict access to this kind of foundational tech.
You're effectively putting a ceiling on the future economic and military power of any country you exclude. That is a fundamental change to the economic rules of the game.
That economic discussion is a perfect segue into our next point. A country that is basically rewriting its own post-war rulebook from the inside.
Japan.
Japan. For decades, it's been the global symbol of post-WWII constraints.
And that symbol is, let's just say it's cracking. When people think of the post-WWII order, they often picture this pacifist Japan with a tiny defense force. That picture is just wrong now.
So let's talk about the rhetoric first. This idea, especially from the Chinese mainland narrative, that Japan was a defeated militarist nation.
It's not just a historical statement, it's a political tool. It's designed to keep Japan in a certain box, geopolitically.
It implies that any move Japan makes to defend itself is a return to militarism, not a response to current threats.
And this is where the historical context gets ignored. The post-WWII order wasn't static. It was reformed in 1951 with the San Francisco Peace Treaty.
That treaty restored Japan's sovereignty, and then the U.S.-Japan Security Treaty made Japan a key U.S. ally.
Right. So that alliance, where Japan traded military constraints for a U.S. security guarantee, that became the new status quo decades ago.
So the idea that Japan has to be stuck in 1945 forever, ignoring 70 years of history?
It's what we call the era misplacement fallacy. It's absurd. Expecting the world's third largest economy to stay defensively neutered while facing, expanding missile threats next door is just naive.
Okay, so let's move from the rhetoric to the reality, the hard data. Because Japan's defense budget is, it's exploding.
The numbers are pretty staggering. For the 2025 fiscal year, the defense expenditure is set to hit 11 trillion Japanese yen.
That number sounds huge, but the real story is the barrier it breaks.
Yeah.
For decades, Japan had this self-imposed cap of keeping defense spending around 1% of its GDP.
It was a symbol of its post-war pacifism. Now, the goal is 2% of GDP, which would put them in line with NATO countries.
And they hit that goal ahead of schedule.
Which tells you how serious and how fast this transformation is. This is not a tweak. It's a total overhaul of their national security policy.
And how is that money being spent? It's not just more tanks, is it?
No, not at all. A huge chunk is going towards counterstrike capabilities. That's a concept that was completely taboo under the old 1% cap.
So things like long-range missiles.
Exactly. They're buying hundreds of U.S.-made Tomahawk cruise missiles. These can hit targets well outside of Japanese territory.
It moves them from just defending their own island to being able to actively deter an attack.
It's a shift from passive defense to active deterrence. And that requires the ability to hit threats before they launch. It's a massive change in their constitutional interpretation.
And it's being noticed. International media have all called this the most significant break from the post-war constraints in decades.
And to bring it full circle, the reaction from Beijing confirms it. China's defense ministry called this a challenge to the post-war international order.
Whether you see it as necessary or reckless.
The fact is that the status quo of a militarily constrained Japan is over. Japan itself is the one changing its own status.
All right, if we're talking about the post-WWII status quo, we have to tackle the most volatile flashpoint in Asia.
Taiwan.
There's this constant narrative that Taiwan's sovereignty was settled at the end of the war. We need to dissect the logic there because it's often legally shaky.
It's a very complex mix of legal ambiguity, historical fact, and a lot of political spin. You have to separate the binding treaties from the political statements.
Let's start with claim number one. Japan's defeat Automatically means Taiwan belongs to the PRC.
The flaw there is pretty simple. Japan's defeat in 1945 ended its colonization. Period.
It didn't automatically transfer the property to someone else.
Exactly. For that, you need a legal document, an international treaty. And the crucial document is the 1951 San Francisco Peace Treaty.
And what did it say?
In Article 2B, Japan officially renounced all rights and claims over Taiwan and the Penghu Islands. But here's the key.
It didn't say who it was renouncing them to.
Exactly. It just created a legal vacuum, and that vacuum is the status quo.
So the international consensus from the U.S. State Department and others is that Taiwan's legal status is undetermined.
It wasn't automatically handed to the PRC. Now, the Republic of China, the ROC, governed Taiwan after 1945, but that didn't constitute a final sovereign transfer under international law.
Okay, so what about claim number 2? Taiwan already returned after WWII.
This one ignores the single most important event of that period, the Chinese Civil War, which ended in 1949.
Right. It conflates two different governments.
When they say Taiwan returned to China, they mean it returned to the Republic of China, the ROC. But the PRC uses that claim today to say it belongs to them.
But the PRC has ruled Taiwan for exactly 0 days.
0. That fact just blows up the whole historical continuity argument. To back their claim, they often point to the Cairo Declaration of 1943.
Which was what exactly?
It was a wartime statement of intent. The Allies intended to return Taiwan to the ROC, but intent isn't a legally binding treaty.
The facts on the ground post-1949 are what matter for the current status quo.
Which is that the ROC government retreated to Taiwan, and it has since evolved into a full democracy with 23 million people who govern themselves. That is the de facto reality.
And that reality is not a challenge to the legal order.
No, the forced unification of it would be.
Okay, that brings us to the third claim, the one about challenging the peace order.
This is the most rhetorical one. It's the projection fallacy. The PRC claims to uphold the WWII order, but at the same time, it views Taiwan's democracy as separatism that must be crushed.
So what's the real core of the post-WWII order?
It's the UN Charter, peaceful dispute resolution, respecting sovereignty, and not using the threat of force.
And this is where UN Resolution 2758 gets misused all the time.
Constantly. The PRC weaponizes it to claim sovereignty and block Taiwan's participation in things like the WHO.
But the resolution itself is incredibly short.
It's only 158 words long, and it is purely about who gets the China seat at the UN. That's it. It says nothing, 0, about Taiwan's sovereignty.
So when you look at the real challenges to the peace order,
it's things like building artificial islands in the South China Sea or the military intimidation.
Like surrounding Taiwan with 180 aircraft after the Pelosi visit.
Or the reported 30% increase in military exercises just this year. Those actions are a direct challenge to the non-use of force principle at the heart of the post-WWII order.
So to sum it up, Taiwan's position is actually maintaining the existing fact-based order.
And the call for unification by force is the real attempt to radically change that reality.
Okay, so we've spent a lot of time on the political stuff, the alliances, the economics, the historical debates, but let's zoom out, like we promised.
To the true seismic forces.
Exactly. If the commenter called us warmongers for focusing on visible actions, let's talk about the changes that make those actions feel almost small.
Technology and nature. The forces that don't care about a 1951 treaty.
They're non-negotiable. They put pressure on everyone no matter what their political system is.
Let's start with AI. I mean, this technology is changing the relationship between humans and knowledge and labor faster than anything in history.
Geopolitics is about shifting wealth or military power between countries. AI changes the source code of human potential itself.
Think about what happened when things like ChatGPT emerged. It fundamentally changed the status quo for how we create knowledge. You went from searching for info to generating it instantly.
And the policy implications of that are just staggering.
Right, because advanced AI models aren't just commercial tools, they are strategic national assets. The competition is now about who controls the underlying infrastructure, the chips, the data centers, the algorithms.
Which ties right back to the THCBS Act we were talking about.
It all connects. Governments are messing with the economic status quo precisely because they know that whoever controls advanced silicon controls the future of AI-driven power.
But there are deeper shifts, too. What about things like gene editing?
It's a profound point. If AI and gene editing can create more fundamental shifts in human biology and capability, then any defense budget increase.
But which status quo should we really be paying attention to?
The geopolitical status quo feels like a slow-moving glacier. The technological one is a hypersonic missile.
Plus, AI totally destabilizes the information status quo, deepfakes, disinformation campaigns.
It erodes the state's control over the information domain. No treaty can stop an AI-generated campaign designed to crash a stock market or swing an election. The real change is this force that undermines every institution all at once.
And the second non-negotiable force is the climate crisis.
This is the one you absolutely cannot opt out of. It's mandatory. The laws of physics do not care about your constitution.
It forces changes that are not optional. We're talking trillions of dollars in mandatory investment to completely reshape our energy infrastructure.
It's a civilization-level project, and it totally rewrites geopolitics. Traditional ideas of sovereignty start to break down.
What happens when you have millions of climate refugees? People displaced not by war, but by desertification or rising sea levels.
How do your border laws handle that? And it creates a new geopolitics of resource scarcity.
The race for lithium, cobalt, nickel. The things you need for batteries and green tech.
The country that controls those critical minerals and the refining tech holds immense power over the planet's energy future.
So, while we're all arguing about ideas,
the actual arrangement of human civilization on this planet is being systematically remade by rising temperatures and exponential computing power. Those are the true, inevitable status quo changers.
Well, to our listener who kicked this all off, thank you. Your comment gave us a fantastic framework for this.
It really did. And our deep dive shows that the real 21st century status quo, it's just not defined by 1945 borders anymore.
It's being driven by exponential tech and global environmental crises.
All the political actions we talked about, the GPS Act, Japan's budget, they are definitely changing the geopolitical status quo.
But they're reactive. They're trying to keep up with these deeper seismic forces that are just operating on a whole different level.
And here's where it gets interesting for us. We're not warmongers. We're conduits for critical thinking.
We're changing any status quo. It's the status quo of the information echo chamber.
Trying to make sure you, our listeners, see the world clearly through multiple lenses, backed by facts, instead of just repeating slogans.
The next time, maybe call us idea mongers, not warmongers.
Huh. I'll take that title. We're dealers in intellectual disruption. I like that.
And that's our takeaway for you today. Always think independently. Don't just accept the headlines. Look at the budget numbers, the treaty texts, the actual data.
And even when you're listening to us, you should pause sometimes and ask yourself, what if I'm wrong? It's the humility you need to navigate a world that is fundamentally changing under our feet.
It's the only way to avoid that echo chamber. You can't blindly believe what anyone tells you, including me.
Wow. Are you saying you do have an aircraft carrier in your backyard, and this whole talk was just a cover for your new 11 trillion yen garden shed?
I only have a small inflatable pool and a very sad-looking herb garden. We'll catch you next time.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Sip&Talk podcast for more breakdowns like this.
And please, check out our old friend Mickey's YouTube channel, Mickytolife, for some really fun memes and travel vlogs. Until next time.
Bye, Sip&Talkers.